I have recently turned 38 years old. I've been an artist forever, since the moment I could hold a pen to trace Disney characters. Fast forward a couple of decades, and I'm a freelance illustrator making a living drawing all sorts of things. I've worked on numerous big and small projects for clients from startups to huge brands. But in all these years, there's something I never dared to start working on. My own comic. Well, technically I have made comics before as a 13-year-old kid. There was the one about Jesus as a Formula 1 driver. Yeah, that was weird. And some not so flattering comics about my teachers that got me into some trouble. Let's just say these don't count. I wish I could show them to you though, but they got lost over the years and it's probably for the better. By the way, if you don't know me, my name is Stefan, aka Plastic Pen, and I'm a freelance artist from Germany. So cool that you're still with me. So about that comic, why exactly did I never make one? Because comics intimidate the heck out of me. They are hard. You've got to be so consistent, drawing the same character 100 times in different situations and still making them look like themselves is black magic to me. I also like details, lots of them, which means a comic would take me forever. I love comics though. I have a small but nice collection and I admire the artists who create them. And a while ago, reading some comic books, I remembered something, a rule that applies to so much around being a freelance artist. Big goals are good and important, but they always happen through small steps. I don't need to try to make a 300-page masterpiece right out of the gate. I thought I could start with something more manageable, a double spread or even a single panel. To me, this principle has been so helpful for staying motivated during my artist career, while keeping an eye on the big picture. For making a comic, it should work the same way, right? Around that same time, in late 2023, my friend Dominic Gümbel and I started talking about running a project together. Mirrored Dreams, an art anthology book about dreams and nightmares. I just had Dominic as the first guest on Pentales, my new podcast, where we talked about how we built this book. There's lots of freelance advice and behind the scenes talk in there, so check it out if you're into illustration and art podcasts. The anthology features 13 artists, including us, and for me, this was it, the perfect opportunity to dip my toes into comic making without the pressure of creating a whole book solo. In this video, I want to show you my process and how I took my first steps at making my very first own comic. No big plans, no perfect system or much experience, just me figuring out stuff. Let's get into it. Coming up with ideas. One cool thing about working on a comic for the Mirrored Dreams book is that I don't have to come up with a story from a blank page. When we started working on the book, we asked our followers and communities to share their most memorable dreams and nightmares they could remember. And wow, we had way over 100 stories sent our way. Each artist got to pick their favorites to bring to life. I picked one dream and one nightmare from the list. The dream sent in by Thomas is about him walking through a bamboo grove and encountering a lake with a woman dancing on it. You can stop the video and read the full dream here if you like. Thanks Thomas for sending us such a great dream story. It really resonated with me and now I'm really excited to see how I can turn this into a visual story. This setup works perfectly for me because I am able to approach this short comic like an illustration project. The dream story is basically a creative brief. It gives me a handful of details but leaves lots of room to play and interpret. And now it's up to me to figure out how to tell this story in my own style and in a way that is fun to read. So as usual, I first head over to my sketchbook to write down ideas, sketch out rough compositions and gather references. This part of the process is substantial to me in every single project I start. It's the foundation of good storytelling as well as building compositions that do the job right. It all comes down to planning ahead because, let's be honest, waiting for inspiration to magically hit you is a myth. I'd say this even applies more to something like a comic compared to a single editorial illustration. For this comic, the story is set in a bamboo forest. I'm imagining it as a quiet and lush place with a little magical and mysterious touch. As I mentioned earlier, character design isn't really my strongest suit, so I'd like to focus on environmental storytelling. using the setting itself to drive the narrative. I want to try to create atmosphere and mood. I like the idea of an establishing shot for the first double page, introducing the forest scenery and a place that is ruled by nature. I've looked at many bamboo trees as well to understand how they look. For the right page of the double spread, I came up with the idea to add some panels with details from the forest. A red panda, they are so cute, right? Bamboo fruits, some trees from up close, and a hand touching some plants. So the reader learns there's not just plants or animals here, there's also a person walking the forest. All the thoughts and ideas I mention here are written down by me in short bullet points into my sketchbook as well. And for everything, I look up a couple references and save them into my sketchbook as well. The app I'm using for this sketchbooking process is Paper by WeTransfer. WeTransfer guys, if you see this, you really should sponsor me because I'm a big fan of the app for years now. And during that time I must have recommended it to thousands of people. Please reach out to me if you're interested. Anyway, once I was happy with the scene and set up an interesting way to place the 4 panels, I decided for 4 very vertical shots next to each other, I made a more detailed scribble in Procreate. I already set up the file in the exact ratio and resolution that's needed for the book print, so I have everything correct from the first scribbled line. Dominic and I set up this page layout and sent it to all the artists to make sure we get files we can work with in the layout. As usual for the scribble I'm using the plastic pencil brush in Procreate that's included in my plastic brush pack. With all my illustrations I like a relatively precise scribble that I can share for feedback if it's a commission project, but that also gives a clear direction for the inking. Of course, this is totally up to you if you want to do more detailed scribble or if you want to keep it very loose to be more free when you're inking or outlining. After we introduced the dreamer very subtly through showing his hand in a small panel, he arrives at a lake to experience a special encounter. I'd like to let this encounter unfold over a couple of pages now. Through planning these pages, I made some important learnings. In comics, flow and rhythm are significant aspects to consider that don't play such a huge role in other disciplines. First, you have the overall page composition to play with, and then you need to keep the story flowing and the reader hooked. On top, you usually have panels in comics that have their own kind of flow and give you additional options for page layout, pacing, and composition. I intuitively decided to use panels that sit on top of full bleed illustrations. Maybe that's because of my background from illustrating single scenes. It just happened naturally to me. I now had to come up with ways to place the panels and make them work within my storytelling plans. This all comes on top of just creating beautiful scenes by making the right choices for perspectives and scene content. It added a lot of complexity. However, I also enjoy this kind of work a lot. It's fun to imagine how a reader would experience the story and to come up with ways to make a page-turner out of it all. I ended up splitting the story into 6 double spreads. I took notes for everything I wanted to have on the panels and made some very rough scribbles you can see here in my sketchbook. I didn't expect everything to be set in stone at this point, as I would likely encounter some bad decisions in the page layouts, but this gave me a good foundation for doing more detailed scribbles now. I've enjoyed this process so much up to this point. Now I need to prepare everything for outlining and of course record everything for you, and I can't wait to show you the next steps of my first comic. In the meantime, Mirror Dreams is live on Kickstarter, so if you'd like to get my comic printed in a book along the work of the other 12 amazing artists, please take a look at the link below and you'll find the Mirror Dreams project on Kickstarter. We are going to print a 230-page comic book. It's really massive, it's great, I've seen the work of the other guys, it's really just fantastic, and I personally can't wait to hold this book in my hands. Thanks for your support guys, it's really much appreciated, it means a lot, and I'll be back with part 2 of this video very soon. Cheers, bye bye.